It was August 2018, and a heavy, somber silence fell over the city of Detroit, stretching its way across the entire globe. The world had just lost its undisputed royalty, the one and only Queen of Soul, Aretha Franklin. Can you even imagine the scale of that loss? We are talking about a woman whose voice was a natural resource, a powerhouse that defined generations of music. Her funeral wasn't just a ceremony, it was a full-blown state event. Pink Cadillacs lined the streets, celebrities flew in from every corner of the earth, and the music was enough to move mountains. It felt like the end of an era, a final, majestic bow for a woman who had spent decades demanding respect and getting every bit of it. But as the echoes of the gospel choirs faded and the flower arrangements began to wilt, a much darker and more complicated story began to emerge from the shadows of her Detroit mansion. Now, you would think that a woman as powerful and business savvy as Aretha would have every single detail of her life organized down to the last penny, right? But then the ultimate bombshell dropped, leaving the legal world in a total tailspin. Just a few days after she passed, the shocking news surfaced. Aretha Franklin had apparently died intestate. That is just a fancy way of saying she had no official lawyer-approved will. How does a global icon with assets worth tens of millions of dollars leave the world without a plan? The news sent shockwaves through the industry. We weren't just talking about a few bank accounts here. We were talking about a massive empire that was suddenly up for grabs with no clear roadmap on who should get what. And let me tell you, the financial stakes were sky high. This wasn't just about the cash in her pockets. We are talking about luxury real estate scattered across Detroit, including mansions that were monuments to her success. But the real treasure? That was in the intellectual property. Think about the master recordings, the publishing rights to some of the most famous songs in history, and the future royalties that would keep flowing in for centuries. Then there was her personal wardrobe, the iconic furs, the shimmering gowns, and the hats that were as famous as her high notes. It was a fortune that would make anyone's head spin, and suddenly, it was all sitting in a legal limbo. This leads us to the big, burning rhetorical question: why? How could a woman as meticulous as Aretha leave her entire legacy to chance? Some people say she had a fear of death and didn't want to sign a document that felt like a final goodbye. Others wonder if she was hiding something, or if she simply trusted that her family would do the right thing. But honestly, leaving that much money on the table without a signature is like leaving a feast in front of a hungry pack of wolves. It was a recipe for disaster. Speaking of family, the dynamic started to crack almost immediately. Aretha had 4 sons, Clarence, Edward, Ted, and Kekaf. Each one of them had a different relationship with their mother. Clarence, the eldest with special needs, required lifelong care, which added urgency. Then there was Ted, who played guitar in her band, and Kekaf, the youngest. Without a clear plan, a vacuum of power opened up. You could practically feel the side-eyeing starting during the wake. When there is no will, every conversation becomes a negotiation. But wait, it gets even messier. Just as the family was trying to figure out their next move, the IRS entered the chat. Out of nowhere, the government claimed that the Queen of Soul owed over $6 million in back taxes. Where did all the money go? Was it mismanagement or just the complexity of her earnings? This debt added a huge layer of pressure. Before we continue, subscribe to the channel and tell us in the comments where you are watching from. If they couldn't pay the tax man, there might not even be a fortune left to enjoy. Then, months later, a discovery was made in a place nobody expected. Would you believe a multi-million-dollar fortune was decided by something found under a couch cushion? The mystery was only just beginning. Imagine you're cleaning out a relative's house, and instead of finding spare change or a lost remote, you stumble upon a piece of paper that's worth a staggering fortune. In 2019, that is exactly what happened when Aretha's niece was going through the Detroit mansion. She was just doing her job, trying to get things in order, when she found 3 handwritten notebooks scattered around the property. 2 were tucked away in a locked cabinet, which seems pretty normal for someone as private as the Queen of Soul. But the third one, the most explosive one, it was literally wedged under a sofa cushion in the living room. The legendary couch will was born right then and there. It was messy and hard to read, turning the entire legal world into a total tailspin. Can you imagine a global icon just scribbling her final wishes while watching TV on her favorite sofa? It is kind of relatable, but also a total legal nightmare. This discovery set the stage for a family showdown background that looked like something straight out of a Hollywood movie. We have to talk about the four men at the center of this storm: Clarence, Edward, Ted, and Kekaf. Now, Clarence is the eldest, and he has special needs, meaning he required extra care and protection throughout Aretha's life. Then there's Ted White Jr., who wasn't just her son. He was a musician who played guitar right next to his mom on stage for years. You would think they'd be on the same page about her wishes, right? Wrong. The drama really kicked off because those notebooks found in the house weren't identical at all. One was dated 2010, and that couch version was from 2014. This is where the brothers started picking sides, and things got incredibly tense between them. Ted was pulling for the 2010 document because it was much more detailed. It was about a dozen pages long, looked organized, and it even had a notary signature on it. It felt like a real will that someone would actually present in a serious court. But Kekaf and Edward were all in on the 2014 version found under the cushion. This couch will was only 4 pages long, but in the world of probate law, the newest document usually takes priority. But here's the juicy part. The 2014 note seemed to give Kekaf way more power and assets, including her primary residence and her luxury cars. You can see why the tension in the courtroom was thick enough to cut with a knife. Was it a legitimate update she did in a moment of clarity, or just a series of random thoughts she never actually meant to be final? The courtroom battle became a literal scribble study. Imagine high-priced lawyers and forensic experts staring at Aretha's handwriting under a high-powered microscope. We are talking about analyzing the pen pressure, the way she looped her letters, and even the specific type of ink she used back in 2014. The documents were, frankly, a bit of a mess. Sentences were crossed out, there were notes squeezed into the tiny margins, and some parts looked more like a grocery list or a memo to herself than a legal decree. The experts had to prove it was actually her hand doing the writing and that she was of sound mind when she did it. It is wild to think that a woman who sang with such legendary precision left such a chaotic paper trail for her kids to sort out. During the trial, the brothers were sitting on opposite sides of the aisle, barely making eye contact. The tea regarding the family dynamics was absolutely overflowing. Rumors started flying through the Detroit community about who was truly the favorite son and who Aretha was trying to protect or perhaps cut out with her pen. It wasn't just about the money anymore. It was about their mother's final words and how they remembered her. While they were busy fighting, the estate was being managed by outsiders and lawyers who were racking up massive fees. Some fans were genuinely worried that by the time they settled it, there wouldn't be anything left of the Queen's fortune but a pile of lawyer bills and a lot of family resentment. And let's not forget that massive $6 million tax bill from the IRS that was still looming over everything. While the brothers argued over couch cushions and notebooks, the government was still waiting for their cut. There were whispers of serious mismanagement and high legal fees draining the fortune while the family fought. How do you maintain a legacy when the people supposed to protect it are at war with each other? It felt like the Queen of Soul deserved a much more dignified transition than a public brawl over a piece of furniture. So, here is the big question for you guys. If your mom left 2 different notes about who gets the house, which one would you believe? The one that looks official and professional, or the one she wrote last while relaxing in her living room? The jury was about to be handed this impossible puzzle, and the result was going to be absolutely explosive. You won't believe how fast they reached a decision on this one, because once the deliberation started, the clock was ticking toward a final answer that would change the family's future forever. The world was holding its breath in 2023 when the jury finally stepped into that room to decide the fate of the Queen's millions. You might expect a case this complex to take days of deliberation, but nope. In a move that left the family absolutely stunned, the jury took less than an hour to reach their conclusion. It was a total whirlwind. They decided that the 2014 document, the one scribbled in a notebook and tucked under those famous sofa cushions, was indeed a valid and binding will. Just like that, years of tension were settled by 12 ordinary people who believed that Aretha's informal notes were her true final wishes. Social media went absolutely nuclear. Twitter and TikTok were flooded with memes and debates. People were calling her the Queen of Sofa Wills. And honestly, the internet couldn't decide if this was a win for common sense or a total disaster for legal formality. Some fans were rooting for the sons, saying they were just seeking justice. Others were a bit more cynical, wondering if the whole thing was just a display of greed that tarnished her legendary name. People were literally checking their own couches for hidden treasures. It turned into a cultural moment that made everyone question how they are leaving their own legacies behind. But while the internet was laughing, a much more serious reality was settling in. Was there there even a fortune left to celebrate? Between the years of litigation, the high-priced experts, and that massive $6 million tax bill from the IRS, the Queen of Soul's estate had been hemorrhaging cash. Some estimates say the legal fees alone were in the millions. It is a heartbreaking thought to think that a woman who worked her entire life to build an empire might see a huge chunk of it vanish into the pockets of lawyers and tax collectors because of a few missing signatures. So how did the assets finally get split? With the 2014 Couch will now the law of the land, the distribution became clear. Kekauf, the youngest son who fought so hard for that document, came out on top. He and his children were awarded the primary mansion in Bloomfield Hills, a stunning property valued at millions. He also got her luxury cars. The other brothers, including Ted and Edward, did not walk away empty-handed. They are set to receive different shares of the music rights and the ongoing royalties from her massive catalog. Even Clarence is supposed to be provided for through a trust, though the specifics are still being ironed out to ensure he is protected. It is a bittersweet ending to a very public struggle. This whole saga serves as a massive lesson for all of us. If a legend like Aretha Franklin can end up in a will war, any of us could. She isn't the only one. We've seen similar messes with icons like Prince, who died without any will at all. It is the ultimate edutainment gossip. Celebrities really need to hire better lawyers. Even though the court has spoken, the speculation hasn't stopped. Rumors are swirling about potential movies focusing specifically on these will wars. Will the brothers ever truly reconcile? Can a family bond survive a 5-year legal battle over a sofa cushion? Some say the damage is permanent, while others hope they can finally honor their mother's music. Only time will tell if the Queen's legacy will be defined by her voice or by this chaotic legal battle. Now, we want to hear from you. Do you think a handwritten note under a cushion should count as a legal will? Let us know in the comments if you think the jury made the right call. If you like this 3-part deep dive, smash that like button and subscribe for more stories you won't believe are real. Until next time, keep your eyes on the icons and check your own sofa for hidden fortunes. Bye.